Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping off the fast track, slowing things down a bit, and settling into the small, seemingly ordinary corner of Brooklyn.
Yeah, we're taking a deep dive into the 1995 film Smoke, a movie that, well, it really finds the extraordinary in the everyday, doesn't it?
It really does. And we're drawing our insights for this deep dive from a really thoughtful review titled Smoke, 1995, a poetic deep dive. Captures it perfectly.
It does. The review calls Smoke a quietly profound, character-driven film.
Right, and it's set, as you said, in Brooklyn, in Auggie Wren's, modest cigar shop. But this place becomes so much more than just a shop.
Definitely. And the story doesn't unfold in a typical, A to B plot. It's more through what the reviewer describes as interwoven vignettes. Little moments, little stories.
So our journey today is to kind of unpack what makes this film tick, what makes it resonate so deeply. We want to explore the layers the review points out.
Yeah, things like the poetry of the everyday, this idea that storytelling saves us, how time softens grief.
And also that quiet power of kindness that holds the broken world together. That's a lovely phrase from the review.
It really is.
So think of this as your invitation to just pause, to notice, maybe see the beauty hidden in the small stuff, just like the film asks you to.
Okay, so let's set the scene first. The film's directed by Wayne Wang, but it's a real collaboration with the writer Paul Auster.
Right, Auster wrote the screenplay, partly based on his own short story, and he actually co-directed too.
And the heart of it all, like you said, is Auggie Wren's cigar shop in Brooklyn. It's not glamorous, but the review calls it Brooklyn's spiritual center. It really draws people in.
It does. And the way the story's told, it's key. Not a standard plot. Instead, you get these interwoven vignettes.
Like little slices of life, right? Snapshots centered on the regulars, people passing through. Their lives just sort of bump into each other.
Connect for a bit, maybe change things slightly, then move on. But those brief connections matter.
Absolutely. And the cast bringing these lives to the screen, they're just fantastic.
Harvey Keitel as Auggie Wren, he's kind of the anchor, the observer.
Yeah, and William Hurt as Pearl Benjamin, this writer who's dealing with a lot of loss.
The review also highlights Harold Perrineau Jr. as Rashid, Forrest Whitaker, Stockard Channing. It's a really strong ensemble. They make these ordinary folks feel completely real.
They really do. And through these characters in this specific place, the film gets into some pretty powerful core themes.
One of the most striking, I think, is what the review calls the art of observation. And that's embodied by Auggie Wren himself, right, with his
visual, yes. Every single morning, 8 a.m. on the dot, he takes a photograph. Same spot, outside his shop window. Doesn't matter if it's raining, sunny, Christmas Day, click.
And the review calls this a meditation on routine, presence, and the quiet power of noticing, which feels spot on.
It's fascinating because he's not trying to capture, big news events.
No, exactly. He's capturing time, not events, as the review puts it. It's about the subtle shifts.
And when you see these photos, hundreds of them, of the exact same corner, it makes you, the viewer, slow down to see change.
Think about that. He basically creates the slow-motion time-lapse of one tiny piece of the world over years.
Yeah, and it really forces you to think, how much do we miss? We're always rushing, focused on the next thing, stuck in our heads.
This daily photo, it's like a reminder to just be present, to actually see the little changes happening all around us, in our streets, the people we pass.
Even in ourselves, maybe. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it, what profound stuff might be hidden in the totally mundane parts of your own day-to-day if you just looked.
It really does. And building on that idea of watching and connecting, the film really explores storytelling as redemption.
The review highlights how the characters find some kind of salvation, maybe, or just a way to cope with pain and loneliness by telling stories.
Or by listening to them. It goes both ways.
Right. And it's interesting because the film suggests these stories aren't always, strictly factual. Verifiably true.
No, the review points out that what really matters is that the stories become vehicles for emotional truth.
That's key, especially for characters dealing with grief or messy pasts. Sometimes the literal facts are too painful or they just don't explain enough.
So crafting a story, maybe smoothing the edges or focusing on certain parts, becomes a way to process things, to make sense of it.
Or just to connect with someone else on an emotional level, yeah. When the bare facts won't cut it.
It kind of challenges our usual obsession with facts. When you tell someone about something tough you went through, are you aiming for, a police report?
Right. Or are you trying to convey the feeling of it, the impact, the emotional truth, like the review says.
And the film seems to suggest that, in the world of human connection, maybe that emotional truth is actually more valuable currency.
Which leads us straight into another big theme: grief, loss, and human fragility.
Yeah, Paul Benjamin, William Hurt's character, he embodies this. He's carrying this heavy weight from losing his wife.
And the film handles it so tenderly. It shows how he and others navigate that huge, often overwhelming silence left by absence.
It doesn't treat grief like a problem to be solved quickly. It's just part of being human, something people learn to live alongside, finding little ways to connect and keep going.
And often those little ways come from chance encounters and emotional dominoes. I love that phrase from the review.
Me too. It captures how these tiny, seemingly random, small interactions ripple outward.
Like literally someone drops a wallet, or you just share a smoke break, or quick coffee.
And these unplanned moments between people, strangers sometimes, they end up changing lives. In subtle ways maybe, but permanent ones.
It really shows how interconnected we all are, even in a huge place like Brooklyn. Your whole day, maybe your whole path, could shift because of a brief chat with someone you'll never see again.
And that matters to you, the listener, because it prompts you to look at those fleeting moments in your own life differently.
Yeah, that quick exchange with the cashier, the person you nod to on the bus. The film suggests there's a potential weight there, ripples you might not even see. Makes you appreciate simple human connection.
Definitely. Now, beyond the themes, the film uses some really potent symbols and metaphors. The biggest one, obviously, is the smoke shop itself.
Right. It's way more than just a store. The review calls it a liminal space, like a threshold.
Between the busy street outside and this place of pause inside, it acts as a confessional sometimes.
Where people share things they might not elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And a philosopher's den, where they just talk, exchange ideas.
And a sanctuary, definitely. A refuge. It earns that Brooklyn's spiritual center description because it's where all these different lives just converge for a moment.
Find some shared humanity. And then there's the smoke itself. The cigarettes.
They become symbols too, right? Of transience, things fading away.
Yeah, and reflection, taking a moment to think. And also the fragility of connection, like smoke, memories, moments, they can just dissipate.
And the review acknowledges the harm, obviously, but it also notes how the film shows cigarettes offering momentary comfort, a little pause.
There's a rhythm to it. The review calls it smoking as emotional pacing. It's a ritual of pause, contemplation, and relational rhythm.
Right. People light up to fill a gap, to think, or maybe just as a shared activity that helps them connect.
And Auggie's photography, that's another huge symbol, that huge pile of albums, all photos of the same corner.
It's not just record keeping. The review describes it as a time-lapse of life itself. It visually shows that idea of slowing down, seeing the constant, subtle motion of things.
There's another great phrase in the review, the camera as confessor.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because Auggie often catches people just being, not posing, raw moments.
So the photos become documents of raw humanity, showing how the ordinary is often sacred. His camera doesn't judge, it just witnesses. It sees the quiet reality.
And all these threads kind of come together in what might be the most famous part of the film, Auggie Wren's Christmas story.
Ah, yes. That vignette. It's brilliant.
It is. And it's fascinating because, as the review says, it's a meta-narrative. A story within the story, all about truth, lies, and empathy.
Auggie tells this story, and it's deliberately ambiguous. It makes you think about why we tell stories in the first place, especially to make sense of tough stuff.
And within that story, there's the bit about the blind woman and the stolen camera. That part really digs into the whole truth versus meaning thing.
Right. Auggie spins this yarn where it seems like he maybe stole a camera from a blind woman on Christmas, but the ending involves this unexpected moment of connection.
And it immediately brings up the question the review asks. Is truth more important than meaning?
Or, put another way, can compassion justify invention when you're telling a story?
Exactly. If bending the facts or telling a story just so leads to a deeper emotional connection or gives comfort or creates empathy, is that okay? Is it even better sometimes?
The film doesn't give easy answers, but through the story, it really pushes you to think about the ethics of narrative, the complexity of it all.
And it circles back to that idea of storytelling as moral currency. The value isn't just accuracy, it's the emotional exchange. Auggie's Christmas story is a gift, really. A gift of connection, even if the wrapping is a bit blurry.
Looking at the characters more broadly, the review pulls out some interesting archetypes, though they never feel like cliches. They feel very human.
Augie's a philosopher clerk, yeah. The steady guy behind the counter, almost an urban shaman, observing, connecting people, but not forcing it.
Then Paul, the writer, is the wounded intellectual, or maybe the broken father, wrestling with his past, finding comfort in routine.
Rashid, the young man played by Harold Perrineau Jr., he's the prodigal son figure, the identity seeker. He's figuring out race, family, where he fits.
And Brooklyn itself,
Yeah.
the review calls it a breathing chorus.
Yeah, chaotic, generous, weary, soulful. It's not just a backdrop. It's alive, influencing everyone.
And woven into all these personal stories, there's some subtle social commentary, too.
Definitely. Rashid's storyline, for example, touches on race and class gaps.
But gently, right. The review notes it explores systemic dislocation, paternal absence, and social divide. But through his personal experience, it avoids being preachy.
It favors emotional complexity, which feels right for this film. It's also, in a way, about urban loneliness.
That paradox of being surrounded by people in a city but still feeling disconnected. Loneliness in proximity, the review calls it.
Yeah, even with this ensemble cast flowing through the shop, you see people struggling to really connect, to really see each other.
And there's that hint of critique about capitalism versus humanity, the worry about the shop being lost to gentrification.
Right, that threat represents the danger of commodifying sacred personal space, losing community hubs, losing places where these human connections happen just for profit.
It's subtle, but it's there. Now, if this film's vibe, the slow pace, the focus on talk, the connected stories, if that appeals to you, the review mentions some other films that are sort of cousins to Smoke.
Yeah, like Jim Jarmusch's Coffee and Cigarettes, which is also very episodic and dialogue heavy.
Also, The Station Agent, In the Mood for Love.
Night on Earth, Paris, Texas, Before Sunrise, Brooklyn.
All films that, find beauty in quiet moments, unexpected meetings, the everyday stuff, rather than huge dramatic plots.
So wrapping up, the review really emphasizes that Smoke whispers instead of shouts. It values emotional nuance over narrative urgency.
It feels like a love letter to conversation, and also this gentle look at grief that doesn't break you.
And the final verdict in the review, a work of quiet genius. They leave you feeling that every life is a story worth telling, and every moment has meaning if you're willing to look.
Which probably explains the really high rating it got, 9.5 out of 10. It clearly resonated deeply with the reviewer.
Yeah, it's definitely a film that stays with you, makes you reflect long after it's over, makes you look at your own routines, your own interactions differently.
Absolutely. So building on that, on the film's invitation to observe and find the sacred in the ordinary, here's a final thought for you to mull over. If Auggie Wren, just from his simple spot behind a cigar store counter, can build this profound picture of time and life by just looking at the same street corner day after day, what extraordinary depth, what meaning, what overlooked beauty might be hiding in the most routine, most everyday parts of your own life if you just, took a moment to really, really look.
That's a good question to sit with.
It is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Smoke.